Okay, so today we're going to look at how to create a outcome inspired by Allison Diaz. You can see the type of work that she's created here, where she's used almost this sort of diamond pattern to weave together a number of portraits, and obviously you can see that they're all in black and white as well. So we're going to try to create something similar. What I've done, I've gone ahead and opened up in Photoshop some stock images that I've downloaded from the Pexels website. So I've got some here of an NHS nurse that I'm going to be using, and I've also gone and found on Google search a diamond pattern that we're going to be using. And there's a reason why I've chosen this one, which is got some diamonds in black and some diamonds in white. You'll see later on why we've done that. Okay, so you can see here I've got three images, and the reason I've got three of them is because I did try this the other day, and I used just two images, and they look fine, but when I looked a bit more closely at some of Allison Diaz's work, particularly this one, which some of my students have been analysing, you can see actually that the image of Kate Moss that she's used, some of them are actually upside down, like this eye here, look. You can see that I think she's flipped the image around so that some of them are the right way around and some are the wrong way up. So I'm going to experiment a little bit more by trying to add in a few more layers and more than two portraits. So let's go back to Photoshop and let's begin. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place one of these images on top of the other. I think to make sure I've got the select icon selected there, and I'm going to press down and click and then hover over the other image in order to drop it on top. And you can see down here now I've got these two images on different layers. Now what I'd like to do is change the opacity slightly on the top layer so I can start to see the other image underneath. I'm then going to press Command and T, or you can do Control and T on a PC in order to select Free Transform. The other way of doing that is going through Edit. You can go through Edit and click Free Transform here as well. Now I'm going to keep Shift pressed down on the keyboard, and I'm going to adjust the size of this portrait. Now if I didn't keep Shift pressed down, it would be allowing the image to go out of proportion. It would sort of narrow it or shorten it in some way, but I want to keep it all in proportion, so that's why I've done that. So I'm just going to see about positioning this image just so that we can see some like facial features in different parts of the image altogether. I'm going to leave it there, I think. So I'm going to press Enter on the keyboard to set the image, like so, and then I can also go back and set the opacity to 100% again, so we can't see that background layer anymore. Okay, I'm also going to take the opportunity at this stage now to change the image mode to grayscale. So you can click on image at the top and go to mode and grayscale there, and you can see then that oh, I don't want to flatten it, so I'm going to say don't flatten. If I flattened it, the layers would sort of get squashed together, so I don't want to flatten it. Yes, that's fine. We'll discard that. That's fine. There we go. So you can see now that both of these images, if I take the top layer away, so you can see the one underneath, are now in grayscale. Now, the reason I've done this first is that it'll give me the opportunity to make some adjustments based on you know, if we look at Allison Diaz's work, you can see that some parts of the portrait are really quite dark. She's got a good tonal range going on in here. There's some very, very light areas, lots of mid-greys, and then some very, very dark areas. So if I go back to Photoshop, we're going to maybe just try to like enhance a few things. So let's start with the background layer actually. Now I'm going to come down to adjustments, and I'm going to use levels this time. I usually use curves, but I'm going to show you this one on this tutorial. So what you've got here is you've got a histogram, which is basically a graph. If you're thinking in mathematical terms, it's basically a graph showing you how much of each tone is present in this image. So for example, you've got black here, white down this end and a mid-grey right here in the middle. So, and then in between you've got all the different tones of grey. So you can see that here on the graph there isn't any true blacks because we've got a bit of a gap here, and the value doesn't start coming in till about just here. And you can see there's not that many dark blacks because the bar graph doesn't go very high. But as we come down into this part of the graph, you can see that it's starting to get very, very high. The graph is touching the top here, got some high values. That's showing you there's lots and lots of these sort of light to mid greys going on as well. Now, one way to quickly make an image a bit more punchy is to enhance the contrast a little bit, and you can do that by bringing these sliders in slightly. So if I start to bring in this black value down here and I start to bring it inwards, you can see that it is starting to make some of these blacks really, really dark, and we're starting to lose obviously a lot of like the definition and so on. It's starting to look a little bit unrealistic. If you just wanted to bring it in slightly to where the graph starts to show value here, so we've got 12 on there, and then I can also do it down this end as well and start to do the same with the whites as well, and they'll start to enhance some of the whites. So if you do it too much, obviously you're going to blow out some of the areas and lose the definition in the highlights as well. But you can just bring that in slightly to again maybe enhance a few of the whites and so on. So that's a little trick to sort of quickly make an image a little bit more punchy, really. Now let's go on to the next one. Make sure I'm working on this layer now. I'll show you curves on this one. So again, this is another way of enhancing the contrast. You can see it here. It's got a bar chart going on in the background, another histogram going on here. This one's opposite, so we've got the black this side and the white this side. So again, you can see where there's not much value at this end of the scale, but coming down here, we've got lots of these sort of like light greys on here. Now, a good, a well-exposed image tends to have this diagonal line tends to be in a very like slight S shape. And you can move this line, so you can take points of reference and you can move them. You can see obviously the adjustments that are happening now as I move it. You can make it really extreme, obviously, depending on what kind of effect that you're after, and so on. But a well-exposed image will tend to have just a very sort of like slight S-bend curve to it. You can also move these points of reference on the end as well, and by doing that, you can help to take out some of the highlights that way. If we move it this way, obviously it's going to perhaps like blow out some of the highlights. And then this side up here, we've got that sort of bring in some of the blacks to be a little bit lighter, a bit more grey on that one. And if we go the other way, it's called what's crushing the blacks, where the blacks are enhanced and perhaps going a little bit too dark and we're losing a bit of detail in the shadow. So you can do those kind of adjustments as well. Okay. And I'll leave that there because I've shown you both ways there of adjusting the contrast, one with levels and one with curves. Okay, now I'm going to place this diamond pattern on top of my image. That one there, I couldn't remember which one it was then for a second. So I'm just going to come and drop it on top. Now you can see obviously that this diamond pattern is very small. We don't want it to be that small. We want it to be quite large to cover the image. So again, I'm going to press Command T or Control T on the PC in order to select Free Transform. I'm going to again press Shift on the keyboard and then drag the corner edges out in order to make a larger pattern. Now, I think if I set that down, I think I'm going to want the diamonds to go the other way. So we just sort of, I'm holding on as I'm dragging that through. Now then, let's have a look. I'm going to place it about there to begin with. I'm just going to make it a little bit see-through so I can see the layer underneath, and I'm also going to make the one underneath slightly see-through as well. And what I'm checking now is I'm checking that the diamond pattern is covering the lady on the first layer as well as the portrait here on the second layer as well. So what I can do, if I go back here and do Command T again, I can lift it slightly if I think it's not in the right position. I'm also trying to look to see where the eyes are. where on the diamonds that they're positioned. Eyes are a good focus for the face, and we will set it there. Now I'm going to do a crop, which will crop all 3 layers together. So I'm just going to, oh, hang on, we'll try that again. Let's crop that a bit there. That's better, there we go. So yes, I use the crop tool just to crop that down. So you can see it's affected all 3 layers, just make it a little bit smaller, and we lose that negative space that we don't need. Now, on this portrait, obviously, they focus mainly on the face. You can't really see much of the body. The images I'm using, of course, have got a little bit of the body on here, so it's going to look a little bit different. But obviously, this is just an inspired piece. We're not doing a complete replication of it. Okay, let's bring the opacity back up on that one, and the same on that one. Okay, so this is how we do the diamond weaving effect now. If we come up to select up here and select colour range, we will select the shadows and press OK. And then you can see there's these sort of moving wiggly lines that have gone over all the dark areas. So I mentioned earlier that I chose a diamond pattern that had black and white on it, and this is the reason why. By going through select and colour range and selecting shadows, it is selecting obviously the very dark tones in this image, which, because there's only 2 tones in here, are all the blacks. So that makes it a bit easier to do this kind of technique. So I'm then going to hide that layer and come onto here, and then I'm going to come up to edit and copy, and then edit and paste. And you should notice that there is another layer now above that one. So if I hide this layer, we've got this kind of effect now. The only layers that are visible are the background one, which is that one, and then this layer, which has got a diamond effect on it. Now you can see that it's not looking that effective at the moment. We've lost this lady's eyes down here. So what I'm going to try and do, actually, I'm going to hide that layer. I'm going to bring back the diamond one again, and then this time when I do a colour range, this time I'm going to select the highlights, and I'm going to press OK, and then this time you should see that the whites are now selected. So I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to pop down onto this layer, hide the top one, and then press copy, and then paste again, and then you should see I've got another layer on here now. So I'm going to hide that mid layer again. There we go. And now this time I can see the lady's eyes now, because the white diamonds that were selected were the ones that had the eyes underneath. So sometimes you've got to do a bit of trial and error and work out which kind of combination works best for you. So I know that this layer now isn't going to work. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just take that and drag it down into the bin. I don't want that one. This is the one that I wanted. Lovely. Okay. So you can see here we've got the 2 images. You've got the background image here. I've got this layer on top, but we're going to keep that one hidden, and we're just going to have that one on top as well. I'm going to keep that diamond grid hidden as well. So that could be one outcome that you present in your work to show a Allison Diaz inspired outcome. The other thing you could do at this point, I suppose, is you could use the dodge and burn tool to start to enhance some of the tones in particular areas. So whereas before we went to image and adjustments and we looked at levels and curves to change the contrast, what you could do now that you know what your overall image is looking like, if we compare it back to Allison Diaz's here, if you felt that perhaps you wanted to enhance some of these like darker tones and bring them through in your outcome, what you could do is you could come over here to the dodge and burn tool, and if you right click here you can see one is dodge and one is burn. So dodge is to lighten things and burn is to make things darker. So we're going to select the burn tool. I'm going to work on, I think I'll work on this background layer here. Sorry, not that one, that one. So I think I'm going to work on this one, making sure it's blue when it's selected. And up here now, I can change the brush size if I want to. Bring it down a little bit lower, that'll do. I want to select the shadows rather than the midtones. So you can see here you've got the choice of either shadows, midtones or highlights. That's basically what will be affected depending on what you choose. And then you've got, now it is quite a strong tool, so I always keep it quite low because I can always go back into it if I want to. If I put it up quite high to begin with, I can show you what kind of effect it gives, and then I'll make it a bit lower. So I'm going to start to work over here on this, on the dark shadowy areas down here, and you can see, look, as I work into that triangle, just how dark that's gone. Now I don't want it to be that dark. It looks a little bit silly that dark, so I'm going to take a step back on my history palette. I'm going to drop this exposure down. Let's go to for 8%, and now I'm just going to go over this one again, and here, and here, and maybe the eyes. Enhance some of the shadows around the eyes a little bit. Just trying to be a little bit subtle, not being too obvious. I'm going to bring some of the shadows down here as well. Now, because I've selected shadows, it's only affecting the really, really dark tones that are already present in the image. If I changed it to midtones, for example, and then come over some of these mid-greys, it will start to darken some of the mid-greys as well. And then again, the same with the highlights. If I wanted to darken the highlights, it would do the same. Same goes for the dodge tool. If I wanted to lighten something, so let me show you how this works. If I just choose highlights this time, we keep the exposure on 10, that's fine. Drop the size down a little bit. Let me see if I can brighten the whites of her eyes a little. Let me make it a bit smaller again. There we go. So if I work over the eye, you can see how bright that's going now. The more obviously I work into it, the brighter it's going to get. So you can work into particular areas on the image rather than using the levels and adjustments. Levels and curves adjustments instead of using those, which affects the whole image. This allows you to work on particular areas. So let's bring the other one back in, and now you can see some of these tones down here really help to pull this image forward a little bit. If I wanted to, I could obviously go back into the other layer as well and bring forward some of these tones as well in the same way, if I wanted them to compete for attention. Let's see about bringing in a third image, because I mentioned about having one upside down. So let's see if I can work that out. Again, I'm going to drop it on top here. And you can see obviously it's transformed into black and white straight away, because obviously the image we're working on, I've already changed the mode to grayscale. Now I'm going to press Command T, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it upside down, like so. Position her there, and set it down, and let's just have a look on the opacity to see where the other images are. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that actually. Oh no, I tell you what I'm not happy with. Actually, we've got a bit of a gap here, haven't we? So I am going to need to make it a little bit larger. So let's bring her there, like so, a little bit more. Set that down, and then let's change the opacity again. See what we can see underneath her and what we can't. Right, okay, so currently I can obviously only see her because she's the top layer here. I'm going to go back into layers, into the diamond layer, sorry, and I'm going to go to the select and colour range again. Now, if you remember, the one that we kept was the highlights one. We felt that the shadows one wasn't particularly successful, because it didn't, it hid the eyes of the model. So this time I'm going to select the shadows to see what happens on this one. So again, I'm going to pop down onto this layer and do the same again. So I'm going to edit and copy and edit and paste. You can see another layer is coming down here. Sorry, I need to edit that one. There we go. Now, what's happened now, if you see, is I do have 3 layers visible, but because this layer here has got the white diamonds showing, and this layer here has got the black diamond showing, that's obviously interweaving together, and it's not allowing this background image to show through now. So I'm going to have to make a little bit of an adjustment and move this image around. So I'm going to do Command T again to select this top layer, and if I move it slightly, you can see, look, then the images underneath start to show. So what I can do is move it slightly to allow some of these eyes to show through. I'm going to drop it there, and what I'm looking for is I'm looking for lining up the diamonds and trying to make them even, so that if I did this, for example, you know, we've got some very small sort of areas on here. I want to try and keep them equal in size. And I'm also looking to make sure I can see some points of reference like the eyes here as well. So I'm going to drop that down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another crop, and I'm going to take off that far bit of the image there as well. And there we go, I've got another outcome for Allison Diaz, where I've got this third upside down image becoming involved as well. And again, what I could do now is I could go into it and I could use the dodge and burn tool to enhance particular areas. And what I quite like about this technique is you can make a vast array of outcomes by playing around with the position of the models, how far you zoom into them, you know, how they overlap, which ones are upside down and which ones are the right way around. You know, you could really go to town with your experimentation and hit the assessment objective that you need in your course in order to show that you are trialing enough outcomes in order to select the one that you feel is best fit for purpose.